Welcome to PCC Module 4. We're almost halfway there, and we're in Chapter 5 of our book. Configuring, Managing, and Troubleshooting Resource Access will be the topics that are covered in this particular module. So let's take a look at the objectives. We have to set up security for folders and files. We have to troubleshoot security conflicts, and we've got disk quotas going on, and much more. So, managing folder and file security. This will be a big part of your job as IT administrators. So you're going to create accounts and groups, and then you're going to share folders and put in those accounts and groups into those shares. We have what's called a discretionary ACL, or an access control list, and that's configured by the server administrator or owner of an object. So the access to that resource is at the discretion of the person creating it. Then we have system access control, or SACL. And that contains information used to audit the access to an object. So if you're auditing, you have turned on auditing of file and folder access, then you've created that SACL. So both of those controls for folders and files, the attributes, permissions, auditing, and ownership of those folders and files. Attributes are stored as header information, along with other characteristics, including the volume label, designation of a folder, date of creation, and time of creation. These are all useful information for a user accessing it. Say, hey, when did I create this file? Did I create one newer or older than that? And also it's used for auditing. So when if someone wants to audit and see who's deleting files or who's moving files that shouldn't be, then you can see that information as well because of the SACL. So two basic attributes remain in NTFS that are still compatible with FAT, which is an older version of formatting a drive. You've got read-only and hidden, and on the General tab in the NTFS folders or files properties dialog box. So we still see FAT32 file formatting every once in a while, and the reason for that is because you not only can Windows read FAT32, but also Linux and Macintosh can read FAT32. So if you wanted to copy files, say on a thumb drive from Windows to Mac, then you could use the FAT32 format. NTFS offers advanced or extended attributes accessed by clicking the General tab's advanced buttons. So there's a lot of good information when you go see that. All right, so one of the things we can do here is we can show hidden files by going to View Hidden Items and checking that box. And that gives you a lot more information than if you don't have it on there. So I recommend on all the servers that you manage that you go in and view the hidden items. However, on the client computers, I don't recommend that because it just confuses people. All right, so we also have on the advanced attributes, we have the ability to encrypt the data, compress the data to save space. It does make things run slower, but sometimes you need to do it if you're running out of space. You also have the option for archiving the file. And we also have the ability for the file to be indexed as well. And that makes searching for files a lot faster. All right, so under the Security tab, we see that by default, the system and the administrators for the domain all have full access to these things. However, if you want to change permissions to the security, just click the Edit button or the Advanced button, which gives you some additional options. So if you need to customize permissions, then you go ahead, you click the Select a Principal, and that principal can be a user or a group that you're going to be adding access to, and then you go in and you give the permissions that they need. Auditing enables you to track activity on a folder or a file. Windows Server 2016 enables you to audit a lot of different activities. So when you have permissions and auditing set up, you may want to verify ownership of a folder. So folders are first owned by the account that creates them. So if Tom goes in and creates a folder, Tom's automatically the owner of that folder. However, it also gives the system full access to it as well as the administrators. Folders have the ability to change permissions, folder owners have the ability to change permissions of folders they create. So Tom can go back in and give rights to other people to that folder if he wants them to. So we've got the options here to go in and do a search for various different people to add them to this particular folder or whatever it is that they need. So you can go by groups, you can go by users, whatever it is that you want. And this is what the box looks like. So a folder can be set up as a shared folder for users to access over the network. And configuring the shared folder includes features so that the person configuring a share is more aware of security options. So we've set up permissions on the security tab. That part's done. But we also have to set up permissions on the sharing tab. So that is a completely different thing. So the first step to sharing a folder or file over the network is you have to go turn sharing on. So if you only turn on permissions to the security tab, that only gives access to the person logged into that computer or server. It doesn't give access to anybody else on the network. That's why you have to turn the sharing on. In order to browse to file shares, you also have to turn Network Discovery on. And by default, that's turned off. So when you click on Network under File Explorer for the first time, it says, hey, would you like to turn on Network Discovery so I can find file shares? If you choose yes, it will find all the file shares on the network in your domain. So here's the option to turn on Network Discovery and turn on file and printer sharing. So if you have those off, then you won't see, you won't have the ability to do either one of those. So share permissions for folders or files can be set by configuring the file sharing window. So the share permissions, when you configure them, you also have the option to go to the advanced sharing, and that gives you a few more options as well. So here are the different share permissions. They're not nearly as many as the NTFS security permissions. So you've got read, write, change, contribute, custom, full control, or owner. So here's what it looks like when you turn file sharing on. And this is under the simple file sharing, not the advanced. So this is what it looks like under the advanced file sharing, where you click the share folder. So which one should you use, the advanced or the simple? Well, I'll tell you what I think it is. So let's say you've got a folder with a terabyte of data, and you want to go turn file or folder sharing on so people can access this from the server that resides on the server. If you use the simple way of doing it, which you see here, if you use the simple way of sharing as you see here, then when you click share, it's going to go through each one of those files and make you wait to go through each one of those files to make sure the sharing is set on every one of those terabyte of files. Slows the server down. It makes you wait before you can even do anything else on the server. Now, if you use the advanced sharing, it doesn't do that. It will put it into a background service that will not slow down the server. It will not slow down you from doing other things. So I like to do the advanced sharing. I don't know why everybody doesn't do the advanced sharing, but that is just the way it is. Windows Server 2016 offers the Effective Access tab. This is a really helpful tool. Using the tab, you can view effective permissions. So let's say I've added permissions on the share side, and I've added permissions on the security side. Well, you have to combine those permissions together in order to find out what the effective permissions are. Now, in one of the mini videos, I go into this in more detail, specifically for the lab. However, what you can do is you can use the effective access to see what it is you want. So again, if we use Tom as an example, Tom says, hey, I cannot open this folder, or I can open it, but I can't add a file. And so what you can do is you can go to the effective permissions to see what Tom's rights are. And then you can go adjust them, click it again, and see if you've made them the way that you need them for Tom to do his job. So it's a very easy way to find out whether you've given the right permissions or not. Troubleshooting a security conflict. So sometimes you have conflicts where people have files or folders that don't have the proper permissions because they've been moved or copied. So if you, for instance, move a folder from one partition to another, it's going to lose all of those sharing properties that you had given it earlier. When you have to reset that part up again. So a newly created file inherits permissions already set up in a folder. So it's going to inherit whatever happens from the parent. So if you will go from the C drive to the D drive, and the D has different parental permissions at the top level, it's going to inherit different permissions at the security tab as well. So not only is your share completely blown away, but your security is now different as well. So you need to go in and reset that all back up. NTFS and FAT32 do not have the same capabilities for file sharing or folder sharing. For instance, a FAT32, you cannot set up the ability to access certain files and give those rights to certain people. So when you move a file or folder from NTFS to FAT32, it's going to be completely different, and you may not even get the permissions that you want at all. So here's a list of all different types of troubleshooting a security conflict. You can take a look in case you have any problem during your lab. Distributed file systems enables you to simplify access to shared folders on a network. Now, in an upcoming course in 288, you'll be actually setting up DFS and replicating the information. But in a nutshell, here's what DFS is. DFS allows us to take, let's say, a minimum of 2 servers. Let's just say 2 servers. Let's say server 1 and server 2. And I can set up file shares on both of those for the public file shares. And what I want is I want that data to be exactly the same on both servers. And if one of the servers goes down, I want the other server to serve up those files and folders to my clients. And that's what DFS does. It replicates the data between 2 or more servers. And it also gives them a common name to access those files. So as I mentioned earlier, server 1 and server 2. Well, if I map a drive to server 1 and it goes down, then I have to remap my drive to server 2 to get my data. Well, that's not good. So what I can do is I can come up with server 3. With server 3, basically server 1 physical and server 2 physical both respond to server 3 logical names. So if I go to server 3, whichever server is running faster at the time, 1 or 2, will serve me those files. And if server 1 goes down, server 2 will continue serving my clients under the name server 3 because it's designed to respond to that name. So that's what DFS is. It replicates and gives you fault tolerance and failover. You can set up the replication and, of course, the namespace as well. And like I said, we will be doing that in an upcoming module in another course. So the DFS topology, it's made up of the namespace root, which is just a top-level folder that's common to both servers or all servers. A namespace server that maintains the namespace root, and you can have more than one. And after the namespace root is created, it's populated by these shared folders for users to access. Then you can have a replication group, which is a set of shared folders replicated or copied to one or more servers in a domain. So you have to go in to install the DFS roles under the file services role. You'll see 2 separate roles. One will be the namespace and the other will be the replication. All right, delegating management. So let's say you've got a junior administrator and you don't want to give that junior administrator the full administrator rights. Well, you can delegate that management to the DFS namespace, so day-to-day activities can be managed by an assistant or somebody else. Tuning in a namespace. You've got tuning options. Referrals, configure cache duration for a folder, namespace polling, all these different things that make namespace, make DFS using a namespace and replication run better. So here we have referrals, which is the cache duration. It specifies the amount of time that clients cache store referrals for this namespace. Then you've got the targets in a client site that are listed first in the referral, whichever one is the lowest cost. So what that does is it makes it so whichever server is closer to that user, that will be the one that responds to them. Now, or not only closer, but faster. So if you have servers in 2 separate sites, it'll pick the one closer to you because you're going to have the faster access to it. If the 2 servers are in a single site, it'll pick whichever one is responding the fastest. You can delete a namespace root and start over again. You can configure replication or not. Like I said, they're set up as 2 different things. And you can delete and recreate a replication as needed. Some customers I've had have just wanted one-way replication. Instead of replicating the data from server 1 and server 2 back and forth, they wanted the data replicated from server 1 to server 2, and that's it. They didn't want to have the data in both sides. It's just every client has their own reasons for why they want to do different things. You can also use PowerShell commandlets to run DFS as well if you choose to. So why would you choose PowerShell when you can choose a GUI? Well, one reason would be is what if you're managing a server that's in another location and it's a really slow connection? Well, you can do that much faster through PowerShell than you can through the GUI. Disk quotas. This prevents users from filling up the server. My first IT job, I had this happen where one user decided to back up their entire hard drive to the server, and at that time servers didn't have a lot of space on them. So it filled it all up and everybody lost access to the server. So you can keep users from doing mistakes like that by creating what's called disk quotas. So the disk quotas say this is how much space you can save on the server. And it just definitely helps you, and also tracks capacity. And it also gives them a warning too when they get close to their capacity. You can say, hey, you're getting close to your maximum amount. You may want to delete some older stuff. So we talked all about lots of different things here. NTFS folder and file attributes, permissions, ownership, and things like DFS, disk quotas, lots of good stuff. Don't forget about the mini videos that are inside each of the labs. And we will see you in Module 5.